Take your time.
Okay. So are you seeing my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So Mirna, thank you much for the invitation to this great event. Um, I hope that you listen, that you are listening right to me, or was telling me I should speak louder. Thank you for everybody to be there. I know for some of you it's like really late now. Um, I have to say that it's challenging to speak after Jan Vicky because she speaks so nicely. And I prepare my talk in Spanish, so I will do my best to say it in English. The title that I decided to have is Times, Processes, and Times in Between. First, for 3 months, helicopters have been flying over the plain of Mariana. They pass from north to south, turn around, and continue on their way. If we agree on something as humanity at this moment, is that we are living a different time. My friend Don Kurka, who planned to travel to Italy with his children and grandchildren in August to celebrate his 92nd birthday, tells me that he feels it is a different time than he has always lived. In 1939, his father participated in World War II and Don survived as a watch repairman during the Korean War in 1950. He also lived through the Vietnam War. This time is more perceived as an apocalyptic age, says Don, a time when we are equally threatened. With his painting, The Spectre, Dot proposes a kind of exorcism exercise against the COVID. His strong image captured the anguish that we are all sharing in this moment. The end of time, or chiasm, or chiliasm, is an area in which humanity has lived repeatedly in the last 3,000 years, and consists in the belief that the world is going to end. It arose as an anguish feeling during the change of the year 1000 in the Middle Ages. It also appeared at the end of the 20th century, but earlier it had advanced halfway to the century with the crisis of Second World War that accentuated the feeling of the possibility that they would exterminate from Earth, man, and nature. As Kenneth Clark says, in recent years, we have even lost faith in the stability of what we used to call, hopefully, the natural order. And what is worse, we know that we have acquired the means to end this order. 3. In the book, The Scent of Time, Byung-Chul Han refers in an almost foreboding way to the end of times. Questioning Jean Baudrillard, for whom the acceleration of history has resulted in things losing their meaning due to the lack of gravity, Chul Han affirms that the problem is that things no longer follow a path that links them to a context of meaning. It is the lack of direction that negatively affects, impacts, and that disappearance of trajectory of things that gives them a direction is responsible for the opposite phenomenon of acceleration, that is, the repose of things. The point is that history should not go too fast or too slow. The real problem is when history loses the trajectory. With the superdensity of information and events, everything falls apart in the present and there is no clear direction. Chul Han's ideas open questions about the way we perceive our own moment. At the beginning, we felt in a way that history had stopped. And as we have heard today, we are not clear about the path it is taking, nor the speed in which it is evolving. 4. The experience of vertigo that we are feeling now is still related to the new time. We are confined and we cannot move. There are no flights. There is no massive movement between cities. Suddenly, it became dangerous to travel. Events are rushing. Day by day, we see figures of how many people get sick, how many people die, and how many people have recovered. Numbers that day by day increase unite us to the other people in the world, and at the same time underline our differences. We live the narrative of the evolution of a disease and its physical, psychological, economic, and social effects around us. And we wonder, will we get out of this? Are we facing the end of our species? Can we still build new narratives? Events continue. 5. We live in between. We live in between of things that happen because things are verbs. They are under construction, in constant change, in motion. We are in between processes. With the actions we take today, we create the world of tomorrow, in between the confinement and the desire to escape, between the healthy body and the sick body, between the strong body and the fragile body, between childhood and adult life, between the fragility of the intermediate or the intermediate of the fragility, in between the body and space, because if we are aware of something now, is of empty spaces and of the filled spaces. We are aware of the air in the street and in our house, of our freedom and our confinement. 6. Empty landscapes. For some time, I have been interested in a series of works of art where artists captured empty landscapes. They are landscapes where there are traces that suggest that something has happened, but the event is not evident. And if before I thought that the landscape was a measure of in geographical space, which depended on an observer, I am increasingly convinced that the landscape is a unit in the process of change. In this new conception, the idea of a human being who observes nature becomes an organism in which all beings are integrated. The landscape is a processed unit. Such as Beyond, Más Allá, by María Isabel Rueda, a photographic series in which she captures the deteriorated Puerto Colombia pier in Barranquilla, recalled the deterioration of the passage of time. The pier that received the majority of immigrants who arrived in the country during the 20th century is here eaten away by the salt of the Caribbean Sea, and especially by the negligent lack of maintenance by the state. Or the Scala series that Juan Fernando Ram did on the outskirts of Medellin, where he captured the scales built by people as they pass day by day, trying to get to their home. Or Treno by Clemencia Echeverri, a video installation in which the Cauca River that rises, falls, and swells is the main protagonist. This work related to the violent history of Colombia attracts attention as it displaces the body in the narrative of events. The series of landscapes and battles of Jesus Abad Colorado, like this photograph where he confronts us with the other temporalities and consequences of the conflict, shifting his gaze to the affection of the landscape. Let me put just a short clip so you can see how the installation works. 7, empty places. 500 years ago, Renaissance artists and architects designed ideal cities, safe and orderly with special areas for pedestrians. In 1485, as a consequence of the plague, the cities had to be above all, especially had to have above all special cleaning conditions that solves the unhealthy nature of the Middle Ages. The ideal city, in addition to being efficient, comfortable, and spacious, had to have orderly buildings, high and strong walls. It should have wide spaces for public meetings, but it should also be protected from nature, from possible animal attacks, storms, etc. Today, we find empty, ghostly cities. The Arch of Triumph in Paris, La Plaza del Vaticano in Rome, Trafalgar Square, London, Bogota, and also Bogota. 8. The beginning. The idea of that apocalyptic time and an imminent end also leads to the question of a beginning. And there are no more revealing images of the beginning than the representation of the gods of various mythologies. Frontal figures in gore, beer, colored glass. A beardless short-haired Christ dread in his purple robe watches up from the glove of the world. He wears a crown in his right hand and a parchment in his left. He is accompanied on the right by the Archangel San Gabriel. The mystery of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit represented in a figure with 3 strange faces. The creation of the sun and the moon, the creation of man, or the representation of Bachue and Bochica that left the Guatavita Lagoon to populate the earth and sank again in the lagoon. Humanity is also looking for an origin of the coronavirus in pangolins, in bats, at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, at the Wuhan Sea Market, in microscopes. End. But every story has an end. And we have also seen many images of painful endings. Mass graves in New York, massive graves in Brazil. The cemeteries extended in the Amazon in Brazil and Sao Paulo. And we, of course, we wish to have happier endings, like the kisses of the reunions after Second World War. 10. Proposals to return to the sensible. And here we are sitting in the distance, communicating from screens and virtual worlds, and we wonder how to get back to the body. This is the work that we were talking about before by Miri Sekal. What we are going to see now is a series of works by my students from first semester at the National University who are studying art. And the answer is how to go back to the body. Part of the work had been done, part of the work they had been doing is construct their own web pages. And some of the works they did for my class and for other classes are in their pages. So this is like proposals to go back to sensibility in the middle of being enclosed. Domestic is a work by María del Mar Ramírez. It's in a way inspired by I Like America and America Likes Me by Joseph Beuys. So what she did is she realized being enclosed that she was all the time with her dog, and she decided to kind of take a series of photographs and at the same time to play a little bit disguising the dog. Experiencias sensoriales. In this work, Julián Lambraño decided to make an intervention in his apartment, and he put these tapes so he could be sensitive to the movements that he was doing in the place, and at the same time he had to be forced, and he forced all the people who were living in his in the apartment to go through all these exercises crossing the space. Laura Carpintero decided to make an intervention in the space of the apartment, putting these kind of tapes and making people conscious of the spaces inside the tapes, where the tapes were marked. And more related to the body, again, Laura, working with scars asked people to send her pictures of marks that they had in their own body that tell in a way a story of what had happened to them. And in this piece, Conexión Sensorial, Juan Manuel Cabrera proposed part of his family to cover their faces with clothes and try to communicate through feeling. So in a way, all this lead us to the questions that we were talking at the end of Menagem's talk about the necessity of the body to learn or to experience the world. And something that has called my attention are these two works, Meteoros and Cánticos. And maybe if we have the time, I don't know, you can tell me. 2 minutes?
Yeah, that's okay, yeah. Sure.
It's okay? Okay. Let me see, we can listen to, if I find again the presentation that in a way I think disappeared for some reason. It was hiding. So what she did was she proposed to a work with the sound of meteoros. And the second one is called Cánticos by Julián Lambraño. And what he proposed is a work with the sound of the whales, with the songs of the whales. Well, I will stop it. The link is on the page, so it's easy to go back to it. Let me see if I can go back to share my screen. I don't see the page. Sorry, I cannot see the page of the Zoom. Okay. I think it got lost behind the, okay, here it is. Sorry. Okay, so I'll turn my screen again. I do see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. Finale. On March 18 of this year, we came with Andres to live in Chia to spend our confinement. So this is the place where we are now. what originally was supposed to be a couple of days, a couple of weeks, has already accumulated 3 months. The house is in the country. It is a house that my father built almost 40 years ago. The view of the area, as you saw before, and the detail of the house. After the confusion of the break in the routine, I was petrified. I soon realized that the safeguard was in doing small symbolic acts of reparation of the world. That means planting, taking care of the garden, and also sewing and repairing small things. So for my proposal as a way of resisting is to recover the time of the process. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So there is a question by Fernando. He's saying, Maria Clara, about landscape and body. Can we at all feel landscapes without immersing our bodies in it? Technology and virtual images do not seem to help. It seems we will need physical spaces, at least in the second order representation level, as your students show. Yeah, I think we need them to feel and to smell and to touch in order to experience the landscape. And I think the same that Menahem was saying before. We really need the contact to establish, to establish something with what we are seeing, or if it is people, then people. If it's plants, or it's a very complex experience. So yeah, that's what I think.
Sorry, I wanted to thank you. I think I didn't connect the microphone. I wanted to thank you for sharing all this with us. All these beautiful and intense thoughts. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I wanted to say something. I think we have talked a lot about the contact with our students, but there is also other kinds of contact. Of course, there is the contact with our intimate friends and lovers. But I want to talk about the contact with strangers. I think this is something that has, now it has slowly come back to life in Paris. And for me, this is something that I've been missing a lot. And this might be somewhat cultural, but in this Mediterranean culture that I'm from and where I live, contact is very important. Physical contact, touching each other, kissing when we meet on the street. And all of this disappeared because of the COVID, and people were afraid. And for me, this was very hard at the beginning, to go out on the street, and people were, since they couldn't touch, they wouldn't even say hello to you, because somehow, what does it mean? It was very strange. I remember when I stopped smoking many years ago, I couldn't drink coffee because I didn't think that coffee made any sense without cigarettes. And then later I got used to it. And I suppose we are going through that now. So somehow it relates to this lack of touch that you and Menahem were evoking.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Philip says that he thinks that the English reserve is an advantage.
Definitely.
Yeah, it doesn't make that much of a change in that in the English culture, perhaps. Yeah.
Yes. Sakai and Fucino was saying the same about their culture in Japan.
Yeah.
Something if I may ask you or say something about the importance of, which I don't really rationally understand it. The importance of physical presence. I'm not talking just about physical contact that Mirna was talking about between people. Somehow, again, I'm come from a culture that physical contact between people is an very important part of forming the relationship.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about physical contact with ideas. For instance, think about the idea of pilgrimage. Why do you have to go to a place, let's say some miracle or some important saint were living? Why is it important to be literally at that place? By the way, it could be very well an imagined place, but still it's very important for you to do that. And by the way, we, not religious even, modern people, we do have our own pilgrimages. We go, for instance, we go to a place where, let's say, an important writer was living. Why is it important? We admire him. So we go to a place where all we see is the desk that he was writing on, the bed in which he was sleeping, if it's the genuine bed at all. But it's somewhat important to us to, in order to reassert our connection to him, it's important physically to be at a place that somehow is physically connected with it. There's a kind of transitivity of the physical contact.
Yeah. You need to, when you go to places like that, in a way, you dream that you are living the experience of the person who was there. You are sharing in the separated by time, but you are sharing in a way the experience of the space that the person was.
But why do you have physically to be there? I mean, you could dream that you go to the place or think about. Yeah. It's still somehow feel important. It's not the same experience. You physically have to be there.
Yeah, but it's the same that is happening to us now. I mean, I cannot go to Jerusalem now. And even if I dream, and I have been there, and I can remember how it is being in Jerusalem, is never the same as seeing the images is never the same as if I was there, because I am not feeling the heat of this place, and I'm not listening to the experience of everybody, and
the smell of the place.
It's multi-dimensional, the experience. So it's really, and it's the same that happens with your students. I was thinking that what we do in classes is a kind of performance. So there are these times that you low your voice, or you make it much higher, and when you make your voice so high, then you feel that you are, you have all this audience in front of you. Mm-hmm. And it's like a concert. I mean, it's like you are like acting, and it's not the same with the screen, because you are seeing, you see screens, and people are looking at you like, okay, this person is saying.
You don't even know sometimes if there are people.
You don't see like the eyes driving, and
Yeah, why didn't cinema completely make the theater redundant? Cinema did not make theater redundant. You still want the live experience.
Yeah.
Or even you got the best music system. You still have a special meaning to a live concert.
Yes, I would like to say something nice that happened today here in Paris. We actually have for the first time the cinemas, and yesterday was the first concert, because it was a traditional day of music. So somehow a sign of optimism.
Yeah, that's true.
Fernando is asking something. He says, Maria Clara, you have worked both in video and very physical art. I would like to hear what should be now the resistance strategy against and our actual experiences. So I think my proposal is to live slowly, and I will change many classes in school, and I will make them notebooks of history or geography or mathematics, but processes, because I think that we got too used to get results, and that's it's affecting everything. I mean, we need results, so we go and buy things, but we don't know how to make things slowly. So I think we need to make things, we have to recover the idea of the process, because if we are conscious of the process, we know the consequences, and then we are nicer to the world. No, we know what we are doing, but if we just get the product, then we don't really know what is behind that. So I would say recover the slow time of the process. So we are not at the end of the times, we are in the process, in the middle. That's in the in between. And I will recover that in betweenness as a resistance. I don't know.
Okay.
Great. That was what I wanted to hear.
Okay. Other things? Well, if not, we should go home. We're already home. Reflect on all these things. We talked with positive ideas, sometimes more pessimist idea, missing our things were in the past, hoping for the best for the future. So I suggest I want to thank all the speakers and do something that we used to do, just to clap for all the speakers and to thank them.
Thank you very much.
So we start again tomorrow, is it? Yeah.
Yes, we start tomorrow at the same time, 2 o'clock. Thank you very much to everybody who has been awake or gotten up early, and thank you to the chair.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.